Some people scared of height. Some people scared of driving fast. Some people scared of ghosts. Some people scared of the truth. Welcome to the African History Curriculum, the African Renaissance series, the De8enki Mesu. This feature is about Carter G. Woodson, the inventor of Black History Month in the United States. And this is a review in connection with the overall series for your entertainment purpose. Yes, yes. Yes, I need you. To the Saturday evening special. This one is a very special episode. While we feature, this is called the African History Review in the special month of February, considered as Black History Month. But just to talk a little bit about how this whole Black History Month came into existence as a thing. The idea originally came about as Negro Achievement Week. Yes, Negro Achievement Week. Carter G. Woodson's book was called The Miseducation of the Negro. Oh yes. The Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson. It's an interesting book, and it's actually available via audiobook with easy access. You see, you can just Google it, YouTube it, and it reads right out in an audio form. Some people recognize Black History Month as a thing that some people are aware of. Very few people observe and really appreciate the value. So the Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson. It was published in 1933. Dr. Woodson wrote other books like the Journal of Negro History, A Life in Black History, African Myth and Folk Tales in 1876 and lived to 1950. He is considered the father of Black history. His Washington home in DC is a National Historic Site. He identified some of the side effects with Western education system and how it impacted upon the African mind. He identified that it was almost entirely Eurocentric. It was designed to limit the growth of the Negro and the development and limit him to the assembly line. Carter G. Woodson was responsible for establishing the idea to set aside 1 week for the study of Black history. And that 1 week was initially called Negro Achievement Week. And this was in 1927. Eventually, the week extended into a month, and we now call it Black History Month. The month was decided upon by putting together the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, which was the birthdays were in February. I mean, Frederick Douglass wasn't sure when his birthday was, but that's what they decided upon because of the impact on slavery itself. So Carter G grew up in Virginia, and he worked his way and he became the second black man to graduate from Harvard University with a PhD in history. He would come of age in the Reconstruction era, and he was able to travel a lot, even outside of the United States. During his travels, he noticed that the blacks struggled all over the world and struggled also to occupy even the lower ranks of society, wherever he was. While in school, Carter G. Woodson observed that the curriculum, it sought to slander or ignore the presence of blacks in history. After being informed in class that the Negro had no history, he was fueled and driven by this, and he set out to correct this situation, and it became his life's mission. He greatly advocated for the need for think tanks to advance a social strategy on the behalf of blacks in America, and he noted black inventions and contributions to society at the time. His book provides much constructive critique and deals with the reality that most of our leaders and intellectuals are unable to advocate and advance the just cause for African liberation, highlighting that without a cultural lens, it is not possible to be directly involved in our own economic development. Carter G. Woodson set forth a very critical opinion, which with critical thinking, a person can say why. They clearly can say why this was something that was important to Carter G. Woodson. You see, in the 1930s. He gave an overview of the situation in his time after the Reconstruction era. This is when America is rebuilding itself after Civil War. At this time, there were questions about what is the government gonna do about this newly freed and formerly enslaved entire population.
And to just simply repatriate the freed slaves back to Africa, to Liberia, in order to form a colony on the behalf of the United States.
But there were arguments just trained the Africans to do remedial, repetitive work, fix a bolt and pass this hammer and nail, stuff like that, because the doubt of and the fear in one of providing the opportunity for him to become a skilled professional. Looking in hindsight, you can say that the system has always maintained a fear of the fully developed, fully educated and enlightened African. This is clear even today. With that, there was another liberal approach that was being advocated for, to more about the classics and history, and maybe learn more about the classic Greek history or Henry VIII, classic stuff like that. So the debate was, teach him about Henry VIII, something Eurocentric in its classical nature, or teach him how to use his hands in a skilled form, while the training and apprenticeship in the settings for that development at that time would not compare to that of the whites and those who had formed
organization
take their labor and their advantage in this newly economically competitive environment. So from the onset, when you look at the general situation, the people of African heritage within the United States have started out basically with a foot on the neck. So Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro The term Negro, that was how the African was, it seems to be the generally accepted term back then when the book was written. Carter G. Woodson set forth to determine how this form of education would affect and impact upon the thinking itself of the African person within the United States. And his critique that, to be blunt, it was like it will train him to think like a European, not as an African, and bring out the kind of creativity and ingenuity that would in turn develop a society which has still not taken its foot off of the neck of the term is Negro at the time. No, we was used person of African heritage. Alright, because Carter G would go on in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, in one of his famous quotes to say, the education would amount to the African at the time knowing his place within this society that he would be a part, that he would be conditioned to the back door. Okay? And basically what he's saying is that if there's no back door, his creativity will allow him to create a back door for his own self, because his education would have conditioned him to take that back door. You see? So that's how Carter G. Woodson frames the whole impact of the Western education system upon the mind of the person from African descent, or ascent rather.
Outside of newspaper writings such as the Negro World and some published poetry, the work of Drusilla Dungy Houston, written works of W.E.B. Du Bois and Martin Delany and Edward Wilmot Blyden, who had traveled to Liberia, along with Frederick Douglass and others as well. These started to form the body of what would be developed. Without this knowledge, we would be almost entirely dependent upon the narratives of the 19th century Eurocentric scholars who acted in concert to deliberately not reveal particular information which would empower others at the time under their colonial rules. But the idea is the information was necessary to counteract Eurocentricity and add value to the African experience. In the 70s and 80s, African Americans themselves had to fight and protest in their colleges to introduce these kinds of materials within the curriculum. Outside of this developing body of academic materials,
we would have been reliant on Johann Blumenbach and Darwinism itself, and the whole host of scholars who were in concert, either ignorant of the beauty and richness of African culture, or were deliberate in not letting this cat out of the bag. Or should I say, letting the tiger out of the cage. There's a danger when cultural development is completely outsourced to a culture that treats others as others. The book establishes that the education system is and has been deliberate in creating a misunderstanding in regards to Black history and African culture. The African singer Lauryn Hill's best-selling album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, was inspired by Carter G. Woodson's book. Here are some quotes from Dr. Carter G. Woodson. The mere imparting of information is not necessarily education. It must result in making a man think and do for himself. Unquote. The only question, quote, the only question that concerns us here is whether the educated person is equipped to face the ordeal before him or her, or unconsciously contribute to his or her own undoing by perpetuating the regime of the oppressor. Unquote. Quote, the possibility of originality is discarded, therefore 100% to maintain a nominal equality. If the whites decide to take up Mormonism, then Negroes must follow their lead. And if the whites neglect such study, then Negroes must do so likewise. Unquote. Another quote from Carter G. Woodson. Quote, the Negro's mind has been brought under the control of the oppressor. The problem of holding the Negro down is easily solved. When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. Unquote. Most of what the universities have taught in terms of language, mathematics, and science may have served a good purpose, but much of what they have taught in economics, history, literature, religion, and philosophy is propaganda. Unquote. That book, it's critical, and it's part of the African history curriculum. Okay? Carter G. Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro. It's a good read, it's a critical read, and it's a necessary read.
Rising, if you no more.